this trailer wasn't supposed to drop for a couple weeks. We had fully intended to hop on when it did drop and do a quick reaction. And frankly, it dropped in the middle of the week. We weren't expecting it, and that did not happen. So we're going to talk about it now. It dropped. Marvel dropped it because it was the main actor's birthday. Scott, do you have IMDb open? His name is Simu. Yes. He's having so much fun with this. Simo Liu. Wow, you shouldn't. I don't know. I'm bad with Asian names, very bad. He's been posting. I followed him on Twitter because he's a hoot. He's been posting Twitter pictures of him with his action figures, and it's just, let's just say he's been having a very, very fun week.
Yeah.
So
yeah, a needle pulling thread. Shang-Chi, a bit of a surprise as far as characters go. And of course, the MCU is now beginning to mine the depths of the roster, right, with some classic Marvel characters. And I think this is maybe in the same, possibly along the same lines as Black Panther. Maybe this is a chance for them to showcase, a cast and a certain kind of production value, and this, I think, has a lot of opportunity to both show off some sort of modernized kind of classic Hong Kong cinema, right? Mm-hmm. And I'll come back to that because this is very much what the character Shang-Chi was based on to begin with. And maybe we should just go ahead and throw that out there. A lot of people listening to this may already know this, but what's interesting about the character of Shang-Chi, he was very much a response to the popularity of Kung Fu theater and the show Kung Fu. And there was very much an obsession in the 70s in the United States with kind of Eastern mythology and philosophy and the idea of Kung Fu and martial arts. And I remember watching, Kung Fu theater when I was growing up. It's sort of like, Sunday afternoons or so. There was a channel where you could watch, old Kung Fu movies, like the original Wu-Tang Clan movies, like the original.
And now I just learned
so that's what you basically have.
Hip hop group was named after a Kung Fu movie.
A classic Hong Kong cinema. That's it. Yes, absolutely. So, awesome. What you have in Shang-Chi is a sort of a Bruce Lee type of character who, in his origins, didn't have any superpowers. He's not superhuman, but is, and this is where it gets really confusing for me because fans of the Iron Fist character, right? Who supposedly, at least from what I understand, I don't have deep knowledge of that character, other than the origins, some of the comics and the crossover with the Avengers, and of course the Netflix show that they produced on it, which was
I had fun with it, but
maybe
you're more
the more disappointing of the Defenders shows. Yeah. Well, what I'm trying to say here is he is supposedly the greatest martial artist in the Marvel universe.
Yeah, they're probably not going to.
No one can beat him.
I think one of the things that hurt the Iron Fist, but yes, the Iron Fist was created, I don't know what, in the 50s or 60s. And it's white guy who is this master martial artist.
Yeah, and a lot of people, that's right.
That they were like, why are you whitewashing this? It's like, you could just change the character. It's like, well, they tried to stay true to the comics, but you know what? You don't always gotta. That's not like, Superman, Kal-El Superman, or Bruce Wayne.
That's right.
For one, well, and I've actually, minor tangent. The guy who played Michael B. Jordan was asked recently about the African-American Superman. And he's like, look, there are so many black superhero characters that already exist. He's like, that's what I want to do. He's like, I don't want to change the existing characters when there's so many great characters. Static Shock, Black Lightning, just to name a couple DC ones. But anyway, so back to this.
Yeah.
And I lost my train of thought.
Shang-Chi, yeah, well,
we were talking about
was kind of yeah, I mean, the origins of the character, it was kind of an offshoot, kind of a secondary title, I think, from Marvel, originally, like Marvel Adventures or something like that. And originally, the intellectual property, Shang-Chi, was like the legends of Dr. Fu Manchu, who, if I'm not mistaken, the rights to that, it was basically an intellectual property and a cast of characters. And it was written by an author who did a lot of kind of paperback pulp fiction kind of stuff. And inevitably, Marvel lost the rights to this cast of characters that was in the original run of these comics. And they obviously kept the Shang-Chi character and just continued to publish a storyline that was just the adventures of Shang-Chi, sort of Kung Fu master. And they began to add their own sort of cast of characters to that. Shang-Chi, from what I understand, and I've read a couple of these story arcs, periodically has gained temporary superpowers through some different storylines. I think the Spider Island one, he like temporarily gets spider powers like Peter Parker. But that all gets wiped out. The entire island of Manhattan gets turned into spiders. If you've never read that storyline, it's bizarre. But
what do you think it looks like
during the?
Because it's showing him. I'm having trouble getting back. Oh, this is going forward. Okay, let me try that again.
Well, I think the version we're going to get of him in this in the movie is likely it's going to be traditional. I think they're probably going to stick to the comics
because it looks like he's being trained. But this dude training him, and let's just throw out one of the early things they showed in the trailer was building up, and the dude training him because it's Marvel, and they make the bad guys look bad and the good guys look good. That does not look like a good guy.
Yeah.
So it seems like was in the the impression I got from the trailer is that he was being groomed to be part of the 10 Rings.
Yes. I don't know if it's the 10 Rings, but his origin in the comics was that he was trained from a very early age and groomed to be an assassin.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know if they're going to weave the hand into this. No, the 10 Rings, at least in the comics, are a reference to the powers of the Mandarin. Which is some sort of incredible alien technology, not all that different, I think, from what we are, the impression we get of Asgardian technology. I say that in air quotes very strongly, very ironically, right? Because, you go way back far enough in the comics, it is magic, right? Thor's hammer is magic. But I think we get that quote at some point. Was an Arthur C. Clarke quote. Was it anything that, basically said any technology so sufficiently advanced? Yeah,
I'm going to make that our flash fact
like magic, and so
during our intermission, that will be our flash fact for this episode. You wait; it's probably already happened.
Well,
this is not the Mandarin, is it?
We mentioned this, yes, and so the Mandarin, at least the way I understand it in the comics, you go back to the origins of the 10 Rings in the comics; those were the powers of this villain, the supervillain, the Mandarin,
behind his head,
had access to, and it has something to do with the 10 Rings, right? And so, yeah, I can see there he's got 10 rings on this chair back there behind him.
Is it possible that even though this may be the Mandarin, a different name, could that be him? It looks like he's sitting on a throne.
I think it's entirely possible, right? So what's interesting here is that we did actually get a Mandarin, again in air quotes, in Iron Man 3, right? Who was not the Mandarin.
I thought that was funny. It made diehard fans mad as hell. Hilarious. I was laughing my ass off at that. Interesting, though, is that now I think that perhaps that Mandarin was based on a real thing. Or not a real thing, like in that world.
But a story arc from the comics.
Yeah. So, no, I meant the actor Mandarin. They didn't just make up this character. Who was the bad guy in that was the guy from Memento. It was not, and maybe he had heard of the 10 Rings and of the Mandarin.
Guy Pearce.
Yes, Guy Pearce.
Right, Guy Pearce. Yep. So just to, again, kind of get back to the origins of Shang-Chi, He was groomed, raised as to become an assassin for a father figure in his life. Not sure if it was actually his biological father or not, but essentially, you know, he was sheltered, hidden from the world, almost a little bit like, I hate to, you know, kind of throw comparisons here around, a little bit like Damian Wayne, right? Raised by a league of, you know, the League of Shadows, the League of Assassins, right? And then when he finally gets sent out into the world, right, he sees a version of the world that he doesn't expect, and he has a heart, right? And he has to kind of come to terms with the fact, like, hey, now I'm out here living in the world, and the world isn't this.
If you ever read the one where John Kent comes back, but he had been like out traveling with Jor-El. And he comes back fully grown, and they were like best friends. And now John Kent's a fully grown Superboy now. So I crushed Damian Wayne. So anyway.
Yeah. As far as his superpowers, right? I think the closest that we get to that, and it is very similar to the way that Iron Fist was depicted in the Netflix film. Shang-Chi can control his chi. He has sort of a superhuman ability to manipulate his own chi. He can sense it and almost affect it in other people, right? To the point that I was just reading kind of a bio from, you know, Marvel.com. There's been examples in the comics where he can deflect bullets, even dodge bullets.
Tiger scene? That was the most interesting thing of the trailer, because it was the one thing. I mean, there was the big ancient battle scene that had the big furry dragons. And then you see, I guess it was ancient. Maybe that's going to be happening in this. And then you see this scene right in the middle, and it looks like these people are sparring. Like maybe this is one of his training. I can't tell if it's him because it goes by very quick, but it's very Crouching Tiger. So I feel like it wasn't explicitly said that they had superpowers, but that they're such experts and in connection with, you know, nature and their own body, that they can do superhuman things.
Right. Yeah. Well, the Mandarin, and I'm just, you know, I kind of keep this stuff open, some of these tabs open, and look around, you know, just to kind of weave this in there. Yes, traditionally he's an archenemy of Iron Man, and at least in that continuity, they are literal 10 rings that he wears on his hands, and each of those grant him some kind of unique ability, superpower, something like that. Now, whether or not that's
like the 7 sins
this version we're going to get, yeah. If we're going to get some version of that in this film, I don't know.
Well, I'll put it this way: Marvel is not WB, and if they said the word 10 rings and don't deliver us the something after the blowback they had about. Even though I loved it, apparently other people did not love the Mandarin twist in the Iron Man movie. I can't see that they're not bringing the Mandarin in. As a matter of fact, I think I've heard Kevin Feige say, you will eventually get to see the real Mandarin. At least a hint that he exists, that he's behind something happening in this movie.
At the risk of producing a spoiler here, and again, I pull this information from the, you know, the Marvel Comics wiki, their sort of online database. Wen Wu, who is the name of that character whom you mentioned, is the Mandarin in the Shang-Chi continuity.
Okay, so we are getting...
And it is apparently the sort of father figure that after Marvel lost the rights to the Fu Manchu name, they brought in, they probably retconned it at some point to be this Wen Wu character.
All right, well, I'm ready for this then.
Who is the Mandarin. And according to that continuity, like most things in the comics, you get things that get retconned and things that get rewritten. In that continuity, the 10 Rings is the name of a terrorist organization and not a literal 10 rings that are some sort of magic.
Maybe the terrorist organization in the MCU is named after his 10 rings.
Could be.
They didn't show his hands.
We'll see.